Welcome back, fight fans. Welcome back in the new unified middleweight champion of the world, Saul Canelo Alvarez. He put on a display, a boxing clinic. In my opinion, this was a very good fight at points, very competitive at points. But other points, Canelo Alvarez looked to dominate and adjust in certain ways. I did think the commentating crew was very biased, not giving Danny Jacobs any credit for any rounds, hardly. And I didn't see it that way. I thought Danny Jacobs had his moments in the fight where he was, active and effective, but his game plan was all wrong. He wasn't aggressive enough. He wasn't taking enough chances and risks. And I think the reason why he didn't take those chances and the reason why he didn't take those risks is because Canelo Alvarez is an extremely hard puncher. Canelo Alvarez body shots were affecting Danny Jacobs, and I've seen Danny Jacobs get moved back by a lot of different shots. So Canelo Alvarez also made an interesting adjustment early in the fight as well. Canelo Alvarez was moving forward and backwards with his head and his feet in place, basically throwing Danny Jacobs off balance, and he was looking but could not land against Canelo Alvarez. And that was an elite level skill set from Canelo Alvarez, doing something different that Danny Jacobs had no plan for. And after the first 3 rounds, the fight really got real. Danny Jacobs had a really good 8th round, I believe it was, and where he got really, really aggressive. And my thing is about the whole fight is Danny Jacobs' corner was pretty much telling him, hey, you need to be aggressive. You need to be aggressive. You need to put the foot on the gas. And Danny Jacobs did that at points, and I think he deserved some wins. I don't think the fight was a huge blowout, but, I think it was a little bit closer, but I think it was a clear Canelo Alvarez victory. I think Canelo Alvarez thoroughly won the fight by a good margin, but not a blowout. It wasn't a blowout. It was still somewhat close. I think Danny Jacobs did put together a very good performance at times, but the game plan was flawed, because if your game plan was to go 12 rounds with Canelo Alvarez trying to box from the outside, which he did the vast majority of the fight, he did mix it up and did go blow for blow at some points, but the fact that he stayed on the outside trying to box too much, it just made no sense, because you're not going to outbox an elite level Canelo Alvarez from the outside, because Canelo kept adjusting. And this is why ultimately I picked Canelo Alvarez to win, because I knew Canelo Alvarez would make the necessary adjustments to beat Danny Jacobs. And Danny Jacobs, when those adjustments were made, he seemed to be scrambling. His work rate seemed to go down, and Canelo Alvarez kept out landing him with shot after shot, round after round. And the rounds that Danny Jacobs did land more shots, the rounds that Danny Jacobs was more active, more aggressive, he won those rounds. But I think it was a clear win for Canelo Alvarez. He could not cry robbery after this fight in no shape, way, or form. No one can cry robbery. It's a clear victory for Canelo Alvarez, and he beat an elite level opponent. This should make Canelo Alvarez pound for pound number 1. There should be no doubt about who the best fighter in the world is today, because you know what, at the end of the day, Danny Jacobs is an elite level fighter. He is a top level fighter. He was a world champion, and he was a very difficult opponent, and Canelo Alvarez won the fight convincingly. There should be no controversy. There should be no crying or moaning about the fight. Canelo Alvarez thoroughly won this fight, and there should be no doubt. And even at the end of the fight, Danny Jacobs, you could tell by the look on his face that he knew he had lost. He knew the fight was over. You could tell by his demeanor, the fact that he was very lethargic, and you could tell, because he knew he didn't do enough. He knew he was not doing enough, because actually being in the ring with Canelo Alvarez was different from anything he had experienced, and he was not able to make the necessary adjustments. And I think the reason why he didn't keep the foot on the gas of Canelo, the reason why he didn't press too hard, is because Canelo Alvarez was catching him with some very hard counters, some very hard shots coming in, and that made Danny Jacobs tentative and hesitant to go blow for blow with Canelo Alvarez the whole fight. He had a few moments where he did, and he looked good in a few moments. You have to give Danny Jacobs his credit. He's a true competitor. He's a true warrior, but Canelo Alvarez is just simply the better fighter, and Danny Jacobs did not have enough in the tank to beat a guy of this level. Canelo Alvarez has separated himself from everyone in the middleweight division, in my opinion. He's head and shoulders above everyone else. People have to catch up at this point. I don't think that Gennady Golovkin at this point in his career is going to be able to compete with Canelo in their next fight. I think it's just going to be an even more dominant performance from Canelo Alvarez, because he's showing things in this fight, like he did against Rocky Fielding, like he did against the last Triple G fight, that he can fight in different varying styles. He keeps showing us something different every single fight. He keeps pulling out something different every single fight, and that's what truly makes him an elite level fighter, an all-time great fighter. And now a unified middleweight champion, missing only one belt, and also the #1 pound for pound fighter in the world. Once again, unbiased as always, it's the IBFP. Please share, like, and you must absolutely subscribe.